And so what I'm going to do today is focus in on particular emergency spending of three different bills that we have seen, as well as at the local government level. Just as a reminder, House Resolution 6074, which passed a week and a half ago, was the first bill that had to deal with the 8.3 billion appropriations to sort of ramp up. As you initially, when they first started talking about it, they were at $2 billion, and then very quickly 8.3 billion. And the funding from this Appropriations Act is what I will primarily be speaking to today. These are actually flowing through the pipeline. In addition, HR 6201 was the package, the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. So I think roughly 150 billion. It has special nutrition programs and also emergency food assistance, helping our communities survive, but does have appropriations especially specifically in the USDA for services and supplies, and I'm going to be speaking to that as well today. My focus will be primarily on the procurement side of these bills, as well as those emergency procurement items that are in our system already. And I'll try to stay away from all the politics, just to say that I'm a strong believer in our governance system, and I am confident that it's worked exactly the way it's supposed to. There's a lot of hand wringing and sausage making, and that's what's happened here. And but the bills have moved very quickly, and now we have seen almost over a $2.5 trillion response from our government to make all of this work very quickly. And HR 748, which is one that's being debated right now on the floor of our House, has passed the Senate unanimously. I think it was 96-0, unheard of. And so you just see them they really are working together and making a strong response back to help us all in this warlike effort to eradicate this disease. And what we'll see here in this particular bill, I will speak to this today. It will either pass today as written, or it'll pass later on this evening sometime, or tomorrow if they have to call up our congressman. Hopefully they won't have to do that, but it's going to pass and without changes. And so I'm going to speak to some of the procurement items. There are people frantically reviewing all of the details. It's a very large bill, as you might imagine, with $2 trillion, but I'm going to speak specifically to procurement. GovDirections is just as a quick reminder. We are located in Atlanta, Georgia. We have been serving the sector since 1998. We currently have around 95,000 active customer members who are using this service to locate, bid, search for, and find and win contracts at the local, state, and federal level. Our member options are here. I'm not going to spend so much time on that today, but you're encouraged to upgrade your membership for full access if you're able to do that. If you need some assistance, please give us a call. We're working with our members the best way we can through this crisis. Every bid as it comes into our system, and I always just like to show this very quickly, just as a reminder, we are a very fragmented marketplace, and you're hearing a lot of information about a discussion about how that fragmentation potentially is impacting our competitive nature, and so that all of these governments are competing against each other to acquire particular essential items that are necessary, specifically in personal protective equipment, and then some of the medical devices that are necessary. And so there's a lot of commenting about that in the news cycle right now. But because of that fragmentation, we don't expect that to change. And individuals just have got to work with their individual governments the best they can in this process without any price gouging. And what we have found is that they have very quickly put in place emergency spending procurement items, processes for emergency spending. And so what you really are seeing is sort of in the past, or the way that we normally operate, we basically have rules and regulations that are in place to basically keep things from happening that shouldn't be happening. And so in the emergency procurement side, we actually step, and it goes to the reverse. And so you're seeing, if you're seeing a situation where if individual companies go in and they violate rules or regulations that are sort of or have already been in place previously, they'll be penalized on the back end. And there are severe penalties, and you can essentially be ruled out of government procurement in the future. So just strongly encourage everyone to follow the rules as if they were fully in place in this process. No price gouging in this process, and acting honorably on behalf of our country. So it's very important that we do that. Okay, I'm sorry, let's see here. And so we go back to our front page at government bids. And what I've been telling our members is, as you see these bids come in, the very last one's always shown first, which will have a proof of work concept. But in this process, we have put a special link up here that will allow you to go in and search specifically those that are related to coronavirus and emergency disaster. But just by clicking that, we'll pull up those bids. In addition, I encourage you to come in and do a keyword search. That's also one of our sort of best practice way to make sure that you're able to pull the bids that are relative to you. And the keyword specifically, just in general, that pulls from the coronavirus is COVID. We are tagging those bids, not cover. We want to make sure that this goes in COVID. And we're tagging bids specific with that keyword in the text so we can pull those up as quickly as possible for you. And then whenever you receive the bids by keyword, you're able to come in and then search by industry. And by clicking on that industry, that will then sort. And you may want to go ahead and skip through when you're reviewed to the industry that you actually serve. So what I'm going to do here is kind of, once again, walk through these as individuals can. And just as a reminder, when you come on, please place that mute. It actually should be automatic, but if not, please use that mute to keep the volume down from everyone in the process. I have set that so it's mandatory as you come in. Okay, so here I'm going to start once again on the first part of the section. We're going to kind of walk through these, and I'm going to skip over some that we've talked about previously. But the business events category, normally we are seeing. I've told folks to kind of skip through this part, but now what I'm seeing is actual events that individual local governments or state governments or federal agencies are using this not notice to go in and actually do webinars or seminars or online Zoom meetings to explain their procurement needs. So you may want to continue watching that in your area, and they are sorted by state those particular events. And you also are seeing, unfortunately, the keyword used to tell folks that things have been delayed. Okay, and I am getting a comment about using some search strings, and I will show you how to do that in just a second. So as we go through past the business events area, we start in the consulting, architect, and engineering. And here we're seeing very quickly all trades in architect and engineering, specifically in design, saw today specific ones regarding retrofitting, new ones that have come out that have to do with retrofitting buildings. One, for example, design build construction services to retrofit for increased medical capacity. It should be showing you here. That's going to be in the beta.sam.gov site. It's actually due back from organizations very quickly in there. I'm looking at some notes on the side. I went through these late last night, and I'll start pulling some of these open. But we're seeing that specifically in architect and engineering and on the design, going in, making sure we can retrofit not only former hotels, but some convention centers and some civic centers. And those are at the architect and engineering. And this is actually, and not just in our country at this point, we're actually, they're going in, and we have both in the European marketplace as well as the Pacific marketplace where our troops are at. But here's one for install eyewash stations that's due today. And just as a reminder, each one of these, it comes up. An upcoming bid, there's basically been a pre-solicitation, and the typical stage is there's an announcement that a bid's coming, and then there's actually the solicitation, and then there's potentially an award. And so we're actually seeing the process go through much more quicker, where they issue all three of them more or less at the exact same time. As you click through, what we want you to do, we'll give you a synopsis of the bid, a proposal, and some details. If we tell you a specific note about the agency, it'll be listed here. But we'll actually want you to click through and go directly to the beta.sam site. At this point, you're working, for example, this is in Veteran Affairs, but you would want to flow through this, read the documents, see the changes they've made. Some of the bids, they've actually have other instruments in place for purchasing, and they're just amending those. So you want to check those out in that process. But the description is here in this amendment. And then contact information here, you would want to work with them. This is in Colorado for this particular project, okay? And eye washing stations. As we kind of continue to go through, You're seeing projects, data center upgrades, architectural engineer. This is alternative. This is in Kansas City. It's due out. It was just issued for that area. Due back very quickly. Primary purpose is always here. This is a source of salt, and right, they're basically looking for information. This is where they would want to. You'd want to send them your qualifications and tell them that you're able to provide those services, and then they're going to negotiate with you. Okay, and what they're actually looking for you to do in this process of retrofitting this particular facility, and contacting those individuals at the bottom there, reaching out to them right away. Normally, and you always want to still make sure that you're reaching out to the individual that they tell you to reach out to. Don't rule yourself out of a project because you did not do that. Another one, design, build, construction services in Minnesota. This is for medical capacity. This is what I mentioned earlier, and they're retrofitting pre-existing buildings. I heard the head of the U.S. Corps of Engineer last night talking about on Rachel Maddow's show. He was talking about how these hotels are perfectly designed for the services that they need. And so they're looking at stepping in and mostly using the hotels in this process. And they already are sort of natural room size and the ability to seal them off. And it was a very interesting conversation. I think it's stored up there on MSNBC if you want to watch it. Going on through here, you can see the high demand here, and this is in Florida for the high demand products that are out there. And this is Coconut Beach for city government looking for those services and supplies. And I think we've heard over and over again the state level organizations saying that they're seeing price gouging, and it's unfortunately placing our local and state governments in a very difficult position. And even though they have some contracts in place that the federal governments are stepping in and just acquiring all the inventory. So we actually did start a sheet yesterday where you can actually sign your organization up. Use the link in your daily alert today, and we're providing that to government agencies who are looking to reach out to you directly. If you have inventories, please speak to that in that particular Google Drive document. Other ones here. This is a new one in New Mexico. I talked about it yesterday. We're going to keep moving through here. This is one in lodging and meals in Fort Nix. We talked about this one yesterday, but just because we have so many new ones on here, I'm going to speak to this one specifically because we'll see this one over and over again around the country as we move forward. This is the Army Contracting Command, and this is was one of the ones that they were speaking to last evening. But this is basically housing for military as well as response, as well as the medical services community. But every one of these will have details about the location and the maximum of housing that they'll need and the details there. But always click through to see those documents, and then you can download those. We actually kind of explain how to go about downloading the documents as well yesterday, but we'll do that in a few minutes in just a second. There's another one for a blanket purchase for lodging that just came out in Iowa. There's another one. This is the TSA industry assistance. It's a general one. It's closing today, but look for that to be amended and reopened up. Here, they're specifically asking you to tell them what you're able to do for them. Okay. Another broad agency announcement. This is the biomedical facility. We've talked about those already. Some of the more specialized scientific bids and proposals. They'll actually have open-ended dates. That's why you're seeing some of them at 2023. They'll have open-ended responses, and they're planning to have that as a mechanism to acquire very specific and types of services that are necessary in the medical community. And just as a reminder, please turn your mute off as you come into the session. If you do have an interest in specifically asking a question, please ask in the chat box or raise your hand using the tool that's provided with the Zoom session. Once again, another high demand in Florida for related to COVID-related actions. Florida is going to be one of the areas they seem to think it's going to be one of the hardest hit areas in the country as we continue moving forward. Another one, declaration that's in New Mexico. And let's see here, I maybe keep going forward. Going into the real estate area, temporary employee housing, parking lease, air filtration machines in Texas. Here, we keep going through. wheelchair lift, a new one in Alabama. Having to go in and actually retrofit buildings that potentially are not currently able to serve them. And we have here already awards being made. I think I spoke to that one yesterday. That battery one is going to be issued out today. Another one for Nebraska emergency protective equipment, supplies in Alberta. We do cover Canada as well. Bids for COVID in Virginia. These are all supplies. All range. And whenever we use the word supplies, these bids we're finding are open, have a number of items. And just as a reminder, most of them are where they basically break off and they'll have a check off item, which ones you're able to serve, and they have multiple awards on those schedules. Respiratory ventilators in Ohio. Continuing the medical continues to grow as a very specialized equipment. And governments are reaching out to companies specifically now, just directly, instead of issuing bids and requests. And we're trying to make sure we pick up on those as well. And we have a technical staff reviewing those and asking for governments to actually post them here as well. And we've developed a special forum for them to reach out to us on the more immediate quotes. We traditionally have always required a 3-day minimum for our members, but now we waived that. Here we have AirCap Systems Emergency in Florida. We're going to quick through that. Was a new one. And this is the VA. And so this, as you can see, all over the country, this is actually an award. Going through portable toilet rentals, solid waste handling, hand washing services, lavatory, shower, trailer leases. We talked about those yesterday. Kind of go on through here. Housing rehab repairs is still going on. Some of these are basically being extended, and they'll have that keyword in there, and that's why we're pulling them up. And you can actually, as John has asked earlier, using the search string, you can actually do negatives so that so you can potentially put excuse me, put in the search string that you do not want meetings, or you don't want delays, the word delay, and you can find those negative search words. So that basically means that when you do the search, it pulls the word that you're looking for, but then removes those that have the negative word. Okay, and then your search strings are always built in such a way that you use the conjunction, put the original word or a group of words together in quotes, and then use your conjunctions, the OR or the word and, all caps, and spaces in between those. It's a typical a search that you would normally do with a sort of a SQL Pro type search, or even previously we used to have to do this with Boolean search technology, and that's the best way to do it. You'll find your individual, then you can actually store your search string at the top as a favorite and pull that out at any given time. Okay, going through, and if you notice, we moved up to 291. We had 200 active yesterday with COVID, so we've added 90 active new ones here, and I haven't been over every single one of them. If you do have a particular request, and this now we're getting to your IT. Okay, and we're seeing those, the upcoming, once again, issuing those very quickly and moving forward with them, even though the pre-solicitation is not been, they're basically in the development stage. And this is, when you see that for the upcoming, it's typically for somewhat complex requirements, and they're looking to still finalize the actual specifications, sometimes calling on industry to help them with that. So read through those upcoming ones. That's in our intelligence level. We have transportation services, logistics here in place, arts and cultures, organizations impacted. Some grants that are available, basically buying your services. Increasing the scope of particular services based on the COVID-19. They had bids out, and now they've broadened it out a little bit more. Cleansing, a big area now that we're seeing that. So if it's an area that's been identified as potential location where COVID-19 might have been, where an employee was there potentially, then they would, they're looking for cleansing and disinfecting those locations. Also mess attendant, concessions, food services, bottled water, bottled items, ready to eat meals. We're seeing those starting to flow through our services here. Specific debris removal, and those related specifically to environmental hazardous type medical supplies and so forth. we're starting to see more and more of those. Here's one for COVID-19 in Mississippi. This is for disinfectant remediation services, Department of Defense just issued. Okay. As we go on through here, we're seeing property management services where basically they're individuals for, while they're not actually having their staff report to those areas, they're subcontracting out the security and making sure that those are working, they're protected. Okay, going through also across the country, across the world, Portugal, we've had Korea, Taiwan, Germany, other locations where we have facilities for the Air Force and so forth. And just to mention, once again, we've talked about this the last 2 days, the Global Air Force COVID RFI. And when you go through here, make sure you, when you click through, look at the past announcements, and then they're placed in the Google Drive in those past announcements. It's not in this particular one. The way you go about doing that is look at the history, pull it up, and then I think it was this one we chose yesterday, where you actually will see the Google Drive where they're asking for you to respond. Just copy that. It's not a hyperlink. Drop it in, and then you're able to respond to them where they're asking for contact information in areas that you can assist, providing the details, and they guide you through that process. And they're doing another session. I think it's Monday or Tuesday. They have a listing on there. They're doing about 4 additional sessions where they're explaining the process of hiring. We also have a new one for off-duty peace officer coordinator. This is in Texas. Security services in Wyoming. We walk through details. You can see industry assistant. This is TSA. Pre-screening services was an award. They already have started making awards. More and more awards are showing up here now for those. And just as a reminder, I've got to go through that. If you are potentially in this field and you see an award, you potentially can use yourself as a subcontractor by contacting those companies. So let's make sure that we do mute ourselves as we join us. And you can unmute yourself by raising your hand, and I'll try to address those. But typing in your question in the chat box is also a great way to ask a question. But as you walk through this, they basically will tell you who the company is, how much the company won that contract out, and their details are generally available as well. Not here, but you could go into the system for small business and look that company up. If you're not familiar with that, that actually particular system, you can go into the Dynamic Small Business Search tool. This is SBA tool, and you can look up that company. All the contact information would be there, and they give you a number of different ways to look it up. Okay, and this is where we're able to communicate with each other in working together. We also have a platform on our LinkedIn system through our Entrepreneurial Paths group, where companies are working together on particular responses, and we've set that up for that purpose. And you can link in with us to learn more about that. Okay. So as we go through, okay, as we go through, we have starting to see logistics, medical support. This is one just came out, and this is let's see here the details on this one. Place of forms, is it going to be a global one? It's a new one here. We'd have to check through, but logistics and medical support and response capabilities is due today. We have additional ones. There's actually some canceled stuff, but then we get into the antimicrobial products. It's in Maryland. Emergency RFI for protective supplies. It's due today. Chemical and janitorial supplies in Washington. Cleaning and disinfection. And these DC ones, always take a look at those, because those are going to be more global across the country. And this is a master contract, so they may be looking for services throughout the United States. And then you can respond to them. So it's not just in DC. And traditionally, a federal government contract will give you a place of performance, but on the global side, so they're doing the master contracts, they will handle it at the DC office, and then they will be pushing that information down to their individual state offices on the federal level. The medical facility supplies, and it's doing in Ohio. Ohio is a large state also to watch, because there are defense groups working out of that area, and they do a lot of procurement out of Ohio that's for nationwide. Okay, Medical supplies in New York. COVID-19 PPE in DC again. These are more global. And I'm going to get to the last page here now for today's sort of review. The sleeping pads was awarded out just yesterday, I believe, and another big contract. Let's see here. Electrical surge protectors, emergency preparedness for University Hospital there, provided some technical assistance there. Air handling unit, we've seen some more retrofitting of air handling units. I've seen a couple of those bids there, and not showing up here today, but you can go through and look at those individual trades for your own organization. And just as a reminder on how to do that, first of all, here are RFP categories that we work in. Over 157 different segments. And so you can go through in each of those. For example, I'll just kind of scroll through here, but we have them broken up into particular areas. And we're seeing bids within these areas that are somewhat more traditional, not as urgent, but still in response to this crisis. And they're given just a little bit more time to procure, but like custodial cleansing products, some of these are being amended now, but just in more general. And I can just look specifically at those based on the state that it's there, and then we tell you whether or not it's a state and local or a federal level bid. Okay, and you can also, in your member home account, you're able to go through here, and you're going to be able to see your daily alert built around your account settings. Make sure you have at least one industry selected. You can leave it open to all states at this point. You can also search by keyword. And just as a quick reminder, as I was telling you earlier, so if I was looking for maybe the word cleaning and supplies or disinfectant, I can use that search string, search, and if I wanted to use a negative in front of it, then I would place a negative. When I do my search, and sometimes it takes just a second when these more complex strings, as it comes up, it actually is going to produce the URL is going to produce a search string, or maybe even the terminology of an algorithm, if you want to use that as for lack of a better word. And then I'm able to just drag it and store it, and then at all times pull it up. This type of a search is basically calling through over 60,000 different bids in a very complex string. So it does take just a few seconds. It may not have been a good idea to do on a call like this, but on most systems, it won't take too long. Excuse me while I drink just a little bit of water. So as we wait for that, I'm going to start looking at some of the questions and say how to bark. Would state, college, universities use your site to post emergency requests? Yes. We are allow them to post emergency requests, and we see that. But once again, we don't wait either. So what'll happen is in that situation there, that agency is going to make a posting, and I will just kind of go back here. That'll see, this is the pool, not that particular that search string there. And so I had any of those bids that are there, and then I could store that at any given time, and I can just essentially tap on that string that you see there, and that'll allow me to always pull that grouping up. Okay. The way the process works, though, just to go back to that one question, we do not work with any particular government office. Governments are able to post in our system. About 80% of our bids are posted directly by governments through the individual postings or direct feeds. Within the remaining portion of our information, some 20+%, that's sort of the harder to find information. It's gathered by a team of researchers. We have a staff of about 25 in Atlanta. Actually, they're located everywhere. Our headquarters are in Atlanta. They actually gather the information and do the research for us and pull those bids in. So if a government is looking for a specific emergency, it's still always posted somewhere on their website. And we are aggressively gathering that. We've also started reaching out to them specifically, making sure that they're aware that they can post. And we built a new Google Drive form that was in your daily alert today to allow them to use that based on your inventory. But we do serve all state colleges and universities, as well as community colleges, and others. And that would be for dormitory cleaning, emergency feeding. And I would also point out, most of those are still using their state procurement officers, and they're buying off state contracts. The state governments will have contract vehicles to allow them for companies to go in there or governments to go in there and buy off those within that state very quickly. And so you want to make sure you reach out to your state procurement officer. And even here, we're a research tool, and we're also a publishing tool, but you still want to make sure that you do really 3 locations. First, you want to make sure that you are registered in SAM.gov. Okay, SAM.gov is a system for award management. It's a very simple system to register for. You don't have to pay anybody for it. You can do it in a little bit of time just by clicking on register entity. Okay, you have to create a user account, go through and put that information in there. It's somewhat of a simple process. Next, and what you want to do, and since we're in Georgia, I'll just use one for Georgia as example. Just go and type your state name, Georgia procurement, and then just Google search, and it'll come up whatever your state is. So you want to click on it, and then you want to register with your state. Okay, shouldn't take you but a few minutes. This is going to put you in a statewide database. And the third thing you want to do is you want to take the county that you're in. I'm in Fulton County, Georgia, and I basically would go to do the same thing, procurement. Okay, and make sure you register with your county. Okay, at that point you really kind of need to stop, and because you're going to want to register with the agencies that you are going to work with. Now, what I would also do, just to make sure that when I register with the state, I'm going to be in the statewide emergency management listing. Okay, but I also may want to go through if there's going to be a specific call for emergency procurement, and I want to put my state name, and I'm going to just use the search string of emergency management agency. This is like FEMA at your statewide level. FEMA will step down to them and go through, and they want to have a location when you click on. They're going to have something there about the coronavirus. Okay, and you're going to go through and you're going to make sure you register with them in their area if there's a list there. If there's not a list there, they're oftentimes are just using the state in this process. In addition, FEMA has a resource, and you can go to FEMA.gov and make sure if there is any particular call in a particular industry, that you're also are working directly with them. Don't wait on a service like ours. We're going to pick up on it, but you're also going to be proactive. This is the time to be proactive. Governments are not known for contacting you. Okay, that's just the way this process works. You have to contact them, and this is the time to make them aware. Have that capability statement ready to go. You need to make sure you have that now, and then just start letting people know what services that you're able to actually work with. Okay. And another question is, what's the best way to search my product? Biodegradable sheets and pillowcases. Okay, with built-in drainage systems. Very specific there. Unfortunately, a tool like ours will get you to a close point, but it's going to be probably not so likely that a government is going to go in and ask that something so specific. Okay. Let's see here. So if I went in, what I would do, the search string is I would just start off with biodegradable. Okay. And search just that. And I don't have to put it in quotes at this point if it's just one word. Okay. And a very quick search there. And then I'm going to start seeing something. And what I would do is I would actually, at this point, sort by industry. The information becomes more manageable and usable, sort of pulls out things that may not apply to me. Okay. You also may want to go in and just do sheets. You may want to start with that, because whether or not the government is going to actually ask for biodegradable sheets is somewhat sort of, I think, unknown. So I might want to just start with the word sheets or pillowcases, and then whenever I approach that government, I would make sure that they are aware that they are biodegradable. Now, I have a rule of thumb that I always advise our customers: never be creative when working with the government. If they tell you that they were looking for a specific specification on a bedding towel, tell them that you're able to provide that or not, and then give them that additional information if necessary. But first, answer the question that they're asking, because the first person you're really trying to get by at this point is a procurement officer who's trying to determine whether or not you have the capacity to meet their needs. And then if you have a better idea, you put that forward at the second step. Okay. Another one for one of my new favorite people, Cynthia. So glad you're with us on the line here. You're asking specifically about Are they just PO or due to FAR 18.2 and COVID being considered a natural disaster? There are, of course, FAR is the Federal Acquisition Regulation. It's at acquisition.gov. Okay. Now, a part of the acts that have been pushed forward is allowing governments to work within FAR, and they've actually adopted some additional regulations. But every federal agency and every government that's using federal funds is going to have to comply with FAR. And so the way to go through and look at FAR, and specifically is 18.2, you would actually go to here, and you could search some of those keywords if you want to be that specific, but the government themselves are going to tell you what FAR rules that they're having to comply with. But 18.2 here will speak to emergency acquisition flexibility, and that's where we're at this point. So the answer to that is they're going to be in compliance with 18.2, and whether or not it's going to be a purchase order or not, I think what some of them are being frustrated. Some of the procurement officers are frustrated and expressing their frustration through the governors. I saw one governor who I never thought would never be so emotional. At least I would use that word. But he was angry, and this is the governor of New Jersey, who basically saying they're issuing purchase orders and then they're getting cannot provide responses back because the federal government has stepped in and taken the inventory that was on the purchase order. So it is a point to remember, whenever you are providing a service or supply or to a government, that the ability to come through with that, it's very important, because those memories are going to be seared in a lot of people's memory for some time to come. And you don't want that when you're working with government agencies, because there's very little change typically in a procurement office. And so you want to make sure you can provide those. But the answer to the question there is they are ready to go purchase orders that are being issued. Okay. It is a natural disaster. And not only that, but there are other rules that kind of kick in here, especially with FEMA funds that governments can go ahead and start procuring at the local government level and state agencies, and then they can get reimbursed from the emergency funds later on. So they're not waiting on the Congress at this point to adopt that bill today. They're already acting. And so, if you're reaching out to them and they have your services, then they potentially can buy that. Now, at the state and local government level, there's a little bit more flexibility, especially the local government level. And if you had a particular service that you thought was with your local government might be using or helpful, I would certainly be contacting that procurement officer, making sure that they're aware of you and the services that you provide and how to go about contracting with you. They're basically standing ready to get that information from you. And then the city managers, oftentimes county managers, those professionals have a level up to that they can purchase, sometimes referred to as a warrant, that's the ability to buy up to a certain level. Okay. And so I've answered most of the questions here today. We're at a 45-minute mark. I know everybody has time, has set aside a certain amount of time. We try to do this in 30 minutes. But are there any final questions today? I appreciate that. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that if you're not currently a member of GovDirections, we would certainly welcome you to our membership levels. I did send this out to more general. We're like a newspaper. We don't require any contracts. It's $20 to start. You use the coupon code START, all caps, START, to get started, and it will help you out. And you can apply that at the final payment screen. We would certainly welcome that membership. And with that said today, I thank you for dropping by. And if you do have any questions, we're working here at Atlanta at 800-492-8523. If you need a special demonstration, you're certainly welcome. We've added some additional timing next week. I still have a couple of them available today. We've doubled up on them. So you can reach out and we'll walk through individually with you. And these are freely available. With that said, I wish you all that you stay well. And we will provide the email to recorded version today. It'll be coming out to all those who are in our GovSchool listing. You must be registered at govschool.com to receive that today, and that's at govschool.com. Just enroll there, and we'll send it out to that group. We also had a special list yesterday where we asked people to sign up for it, and we were sending it to that group as well. But it will be freely available. It does take just a little bit of time for it to record in the cloud. I'm using Zoom, and they're working over time. I've been a big believer in Zoom, and ever since they initially started, we've been using their platform, and I'm pleased to say that they've done, I think, a fabulous job in this period. With that said, thank you guys, and good luck and stay safe.